Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for AMAC's first Legends and Leapers, a virtual conversation. The webinar has just now begun starting. We're allowing people in, and we'll start the program shortly. Thank you.
I want to say something.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. We are just beginning the first AMAC Legends and Leapers, a virtual conversation. We're going to remind all of our panelists and moderators to be on mute until we open up. And we are just allowing a few more attendees to join, and we will begin the program shortly. Thank you. Good afternoon, all, and thank you once again for joining us for AMAC's first Legends and Leapers, a virtual conversation. We thank you all for joining us. At this time, we're going to have a few opening remarks from Anthony Barnes, AMAC's Chief Operating Officer. Anthony?
Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us for our inaugural Legends and Leapers program, where we create a platform for a monthly conversation between an aviation legend and an emerging leader. This program is designed to showcase commonalities and differences in perspective on the aviation industry. As we continue to promote diversity within our industry, these engagement opportunities are increasingly important as a means of knowledge and information sharing between these two important groups. You'll notice that our industry legends have paved the way for so many individuals and businesses within our industry and continue to do amazing things. And our emerging leaders have already made their mark on this industry in many ways and are striving for so much more. Our moderators today are no strangers to AMAC. Serving as our legend moderator is AMAC board chairman, Mr. Ricky Smith. Ricky has served as serves as the executive director of the Maryland Aviation Administration, which operates the BWI Marshall Airport and the Martin State Airport. He's been there since 2015. He's previously served as a CEO of the Cleveland Airport System, which includes the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport and Burke Lakefront Airport. Mr. Smith worked to establish and execute a strategic direction of Cleveland Hopkins Airport that included expanding airport revenue sources, strengthening the airport's brand recognition, improving airfield safety, and enhancing passenger experience. Prior to his service in Cleveland, Mr. Smith served as a chief operating officer at the Maryland Aviation Administration. Mr. Smith helped lead BWI Marshall Airport through a $2 billion expansion program, increased air service throughout the world, and the creation of a new food and retail program. He's also served as the deputy administration of the Maryland State Highway Administration, in addition to positions held in the private sector for several years with IBM, H&R Block, the Mays Company, and others. Our second moderator and our Leaper moderator is AMAC's Emerging Leaders Chair, Ms. Lauryn Mangum. Lauryn's industry experience started in 2012 when her family opened the refugee coffee, food, and wine at the Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, where she played an integral role in the framework, opening, operations, and staff training, and became the director of sales and marketing. In 2017, Lauryn transitioned to Stellar Partners in Tampa, Florida, where she currently serves as a director of innovation and business development. In addition to business development, Lauryn has an emphasis on innovation, technology, and strategy to position Stellar to becoming an even larger retail powerhouse, leading the industry in customer experience, relationship building, and brand development. Lauryn also serves as chair of the AMAC's Emerging Leaders Committee, which has quickly grown from a conceptualized initiative to a full force committee with highly anticipated and well-attended events by young professionals, emerging leaders, and industry legends. At this time, I will turn the program over to Ricky and Lauryn. Again, thank you for joining us. Ricky, Lauryn.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and welcome to everyone that's here. We see the notes coming up and down that people are excited. We too are excited. I am so happy to be working with Lauryn on this one. Pray for me. We'll see how this goes because she hasn't been very cooperative in the pre-meetings, but God bless me, we'll get through this. So Anthony kind of covered the origin of this, but this was inspired by this notion that that both emerging leaders and more established leaders have both common perspectives, and in some cases we have perspectives that are different. We just kind of wanted to create a platform to highlight that, to accentuate that, and hopefully it would provide some insight and some education to the audience. This will be a continuing series. We have other speakers that are lined up that are just as exciting and as amazing as the two speakers that we have here. Lauryn will introduce them in a few seconds. And then after her introduction, we will go through a Q&A session. Now, I will inform the audience and warn the panelists that we had our pre-meeting, and during the pre-meeting, we spent a lot of time going over questions that we would cover during this session. I'm now announcing that we will not ask any of those questions. The questions we will pose will be completely different questions, so they will be completely off guard, and you'll get genuine responses. But they are amazing professionals and individuals, so we're sure that they will be prepared to respond to the questions. Before she takes the mic from me, I'll turn it over to Lauryn so she can do introductions. Lauryn.
American and global airport services business. During her 3.5 years as CEO, she took the company from a US startup to a formidable leader in the airport services business. Under her leadership, she has built AMAC's US brand, secured and opened 12 airport lounges, established a partnership with American Express Global Lounges, and brought its digital car parking platform to market. Prior to joining MAG USA, she served as a commissioner of the Chicago Department of Aviation, having the good fortune to work with two strong visionary leaders, both Mayor Raheem Emanuel and Mayor Richard Daley. And then as commissioner, she oversaw the management and operation of one of the world's busiest airport systems, comprised of O'Hare and Midway International Airports, with an operating budget of $1 billion. In addition, she was charged with implementing the $8 billion O'Hare modernization program, which configured the airport's complicated intersecting runways to improve efficiency and enhance the traveler's experience. The OMP was leading the leading environmentally sustainable infrastructure program in the world. And she's also a proud alumna of DePaul University and resides with her husband in Chicago's McKinley Park neighborhood. So I guess mic drop, there we go. We all see she's the legend in this game for sure.
I guess she did all of that in heels moving backwards, right?
Yes. At at the age of 12. So
I love it. Thank you.
he is a powerhouse to say the least. Now, Cedrick is our leaper. He is the president and co-founder of Airport Design Consultants Incorporated. He is a licensed professional engineer in 17 states and has been involved in airfield design throughout his 25-year career. He's only 26. He has been a significant contributor to major plan design, program management, and construction of airfield terminal and landside improvement programs at large hub airports. Cedrick has a significant role in planning and design of high priority projects at Baltimore, Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport. Ricky, you may not know it, it's BWI. And then Ronald Reagan, Washington National Airport, as well as Washington Dulles International, Philadelphia International, and JFK and LAX International Airport. So thank you both so much for joining us as both the legend and the leaper, respectively.
So this is where we
Yeah,
jump
can I
into
take a second to bow to Rosie?
Don't bump your head. Bump your head. So why don't we jump right into the questions? All right, you ready?
All right.
So the audience knows who you are. They know all that you've accomplished, and both of you have accomplished a great deal in your respective careers. So if you could do it all over again, first of all, would you do it differently? And what would you do differently? Cedrick, are you going to be a gentleman and let Rosie go first, or Rosie?
That's exactly what I was doing. I was doing beauty and age before me.
All right. So, well, thank you, Cedrick. What would I do differently, or would I do anything differently? So, interesting enough, yeah, I didn't come into the field of aviation, which I learned to love. And so let me take a step back. First, thank you very much for hosting this and allowing me to be one of the first, and for Cedrick to introduce us and to be part of this program. So Ricky, Lauryn, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to AMAC for doing this. But I think for me, I didn't plan on going into aviation. I ended up studying, from university, went into government and spent 24 years working my way through the city of Chicago in various capacities at various agencies, which gave me a very diverse background to handle then the things that the O'Hare modernization program, specifically with all of the challenges and agencies that I had to deal with, land acquisition, et cetera, relocation of graves, working with different municipalities, community meetings. So all of my previous background gave me a great kind of base for that. So I don't think I would have done anything differently. I wish I would have had someone as a mentor to tell me more about aviation, because I think this is an amazing industry. It is a very diverse industry, and it's a very friendly industry. I mean, we all have a great opportunity to kind of challenge each other as well as work together to enhance and better the industry as a whole. So I think that's the only thing I would have done differently, is if I would have had an opportunity to study aviation. But otherwise, all of the prior elements of my career led me to a point to where I was at in terms of coming into the industry.
Take
Cedrick?
your time, Cedrick. Take your time.
Okay, so Rosie, I'm similar to you. I'm very thankful about where I am after 25 years. I mean, just like Lauryn said, I started when I was 1 year old. And fortunately for me, over the last 25 years, I've had a wonderful roller coaster ride as far as learning about the industry and the design discipline for really two fabulous firms for 12 years. And then for the last 14 years, operating and running my own company. So as far as changing what's happened to me, I really wouldn't. The one thing that I would do a little bit differently, I think we're probably going to talk about today, is continue to lend my experience to the youth, to minority youth, and getting involved in aviation. I was so focused on my own career and making sure, hey, that we went forward and that I was doing well. Sometimes you got to put your hand back and try to help others, and that's what I'm working on today. I wish in a lot of ways I could have done that a lot sooner, But when you're in that competitive nature as a consultant, you're continuing to try to grow your own brand too. So the only thing I'd probably change is, like I'm doing now, continue to put your hand back and get others involved in the industry, because it's really a great thing.
One of the things that both of you just mentioned was mentorship, right? And Rosie saying she wished she would have had someone in the industry as she transitioned. And then Cedrick, you saying you wish you would have started sooner to have that, you know, kind of that hand back, or opening that door and preparing that seat at the table sooner. So the question was, who are some of your career mentors or inspirations? And I'm going to actually double down on that question, Ricky, if you don't mind. Who are or were
Not
some
like I can stop you.
Huh?
Not like I can stop you, right?
Ricky, I'm so glad we have this wonderful working relationship. So who were some of your mentors in your career coming up? And also, what are your plans, or what do you want to do to be able to mentor those that are coming behind you?
Cedrick, do you want to go first, or do you want me to take this one?
Sure, I can start. I'll start with the most important for me as far as a mentor and inspiration was my father. And frankly, my father passed away about 4 months after I graduated from college. I was going to get my master's, and he was the one who set the tone for what he expected me to be, what a person needs to do in their career, how they go about it, and I certainly can't replace that. As far as mentors, and I'm going to go from the beginning of little Ced when I was 1 year old and 5 years old to older Ced to career Ced. And the younger one, the other one actually passed away this year. Not to make anyone sad, but John Thompson with Georgetown. I spent a lot of time in his camp and listening to John Thompson, not talk about basketball, but talk about how youth that look like me can be successful in life. And that one day, even though basketball was a large part of what I did, that basketball will be flat. And what are you going to do with your career? So as far as an inspiration, John Thompson was an inspiration for someone like me who grew up in the DC area and did that. Now, as far as mentors, I got two of them. You're looking at one. I had a conversation with one. He seems to be in charge of everything these days. But when I was young and starting in the design industry, I was at BWI Airport. I was 21 years old. I met a guy named Ricky Smith, and then in 2006 and 2005, when I tried to take on this challenge of starting a firm, one of my biggest supporters was Ricky. I sat down with lunch with him before I ever even wrote a business plan or started. And the one thing someone like me needs is encouragement and guidance. And he gave me encouragement. I'm not just saying that. He did give me encouragement. And he continues to encourage me every day. Step up. So definitely a mentor. My other one, he gave me my first opportunity in the aviation industry. And all someone like me can ask for is a chance. And his name is Steve Lucchesi. And Steve was a vice president at the design firm I came in to when I started there. Not many people look like me, but he not only gave me an opportunity, he mentored me in the industry. And I don't know if he's on here now, but I'm very thankful for him, because someone like me is only asking for an opportunity, then I'll knock the wall down after that. So, and that's what a lot of us are asking for, is opportunity. So those were mine. Starting with my father and John Thompson, and then Ricky and Steve.
So I too would say my family first, because it was really about work ethic, and was the first in terms of my family, the oldest to go to college. My parents didn't have that opportunity. So my mother came off the boat from Italy. Father was born here. And again, neither one of them had the opportunity to go to college. They just worked hard. And that was kind of what I was born bred with, was just work hard and you can achieve anything you want. And my father was one that would always be, shoot for the moon. He always pushed you to do more. Happy with what you were able to accomplish, but always said that you could do whatever you want. So gender for me wasn't an issue, right? Jobs, was a woman's job or a man's job? It was do what you want to do. And I think that's what helped me tackle the different challenges I had. My other mentor would be through my government career, would honestly be Mayor Richard M. Daley. I believe, he really believed in me, in things that I didn't even believe in myself on. So for example, the O'Hare modernization program. I was my previous job before taking on that challenge. I was the first deputy commissioner of the Department of Planning and Development for the entire city of Chicago. So I was #2 in charge for retail, residential and commercial development, as well as like zoning changes and land use planning, et cetera, for the Department of Planning. And through that, he encouraged me to take on the OMP. And I had all these elements of things that I had accomplished in planning that would give me a good foundation for the O'Hare modernization program. So he had a lot more faith in me through my career in terms of giving me opportunities. And I think that, part of government, I think that there are more, whether it be women or minorities in government agencies, just because of the need to reflect the community in which they serve. And Mayor Daley was very much an advocate for diversity, both gender and race. Mary Rose Loney was another great example. She was the airport commissioner in Chicago, one of the first women airport commissioners, and really kind of broke that glass ceiling in terms of women in this space. There were very few women. It was very much a male-dominated industry. And I look today at, Cedrick mentioned Ricky, but I look at people every day that I learn from, whether they're, legends or leapers, that I'm able to garner something from and build upon, learn from, so I become a better person. And I have to say, all the women in this industry that we still, gather with today and support each other, past and present, are really amazing, as well as, some of us legends that some who have retired and some who are currently still in the business that you're able to still, again, build upon and, use as a resource and mentorship. You learn every day. So I'm grateful for that.
So I actually had a different question written down that I was going to ask, but you two, you're inspiring me to ask a slightly different question. And so the question is, it's actually kind of a two-part question. Why, given all this talk about, the women's movement and the importance of having women in positions of leadership, and the importance of passing the baton to our emerging leaders, from your perspective, why is that important? You can go back throughout the history of this country, and there's always been a group of legends and a group of leapers. Why today is it so important that we embrace the idea of elevating women, allowing women to be elevated to positions of leadership, and giving our emerging leaders an opportunity to a path of leadership? Why is that so important today?
Well, first of all, I have 2 daughters, and I don't want to have to take care of them for the rest of their lives. and Rosie, if you don't mind, if I start there, I grew up a family of all boys, even though, and my mother obviously was around, but she was the leader of the family. Okay, and my dad would agree with that. She was the one who she was the first administrative assistant in the Department of Agriculture. I was out of the house at 6 weeks old, staying at a babysitter. She worked every single day. She was a go-getter. She was valedictorian of her class in college. First 1 out of 10 to go to college, go to North Carolina Central. And so I watched, growing up, although it was a family of all males, a female who was large and in charge and ran the show. So I was conditioned to that. And now I have the opposite situation because I have 2 daughters, and they are both go-getters. And all I think about with them is having an equal and a fair opportunity to maximize their potential. And that's what everyone's asking for. I look around and look at how strong not only our industry, but our nation becomes when we embrace diversity. And that's diversity of all subjects. So diversity in ethnicity, diversity in gender, diversity in the way you think, diversity in wealth. All of those things, all of those experiences in my life have led to the comprehensive development that I have. So I think today more than ever, we all got to get on board, and we all got to accept that it's about your talent and your potential and your work ethic. Okay. And it's not about the way you look, and it's not about your gender. Okay. If you get the job done, you get the job done, and we all respect that. And the sooner we get on board as a nation of doing that, okay, the better off we're going to be overall. So.
I would agree wholeheartedly. And the experience that what I think is by, supporting each other, thinking differently, we're able to get to solutions faster, right? I'm a big believer in when you know better, you do better. Working collectively, right? A rising tide rises all boats. And if we can together work to help each other, there's plenty of opportunity, plenty of a path forward for each and every one of us, but we have to work together. It's not about putting someone else down in order to get ahead. In order to get ahead, you're standing, on the shoulders of someone before you. And so whether it be a woman or someone of color or, someone younger, I mean, I'm fortunate today to, we mentioned Fetchy Box earlier today. I'm working with Christina Apatow, and I'm so excited because I'm learning something different, right? And so to work with a younger woman who has a ton of energy, like you, Lauryn, that's looking to make a difference in the world, and being able to help shortcut some of those challenges and help her navigate through, the industry and through business, but her mind and her ability in terms of technology to solve problems and bring solutions forward is exciting and interesting. And, my mind, certain things that I'm learning along the way as well. So you do have to, as Cedrick said, embrace everyone. We all need to be at the table. I think more of that is happening, Ricky, to your point. It needs to happen. We're seeing that in our country, right? The need to come together more, and not only here, but around the world. And I think that's one of the great things about our industry and travel is when you experience, whether it be new country, new people, different ethnicities, you realize that people aren't that different, right? We're all people. We all do things from the same basis. And it challenges us to, again, be, when you know people, you actually treat them better. And so the smaller the world gets, and travel's part of that, makes us all know each other and become friends, it really allows for solutions faster, I think, and acceptance.
Backing off of that, and Cedrick, you said something that was really profound, just, that transition from seeing your mother being the woman that she is to now raising two daughters. And, it's so easy sometimes for us to say, we shouldn't see color, we shouldn't see race, we shouldn't see gender. But at the end of the day, we are in a world that sees all of those things. And I know growing up, we started off talking about how well-behaved women suddenly make history. But as a young woman of color in this industry, I have to, or just in a corporate America or in life period, I have to be realistic of who I am, who I look like, regardless of how hard I'm working and what I bring to the table. So my question for both of you is, what does that look like? What tangible things do you think that we can do as far as the industry to really move forward in creating more equitable landscape for everyone?
Well, I think having an open conversation, right? And the key decision makers, right? So the leaders can, challenge the status quo, right? So when people are hiring, look, you might take a little longer to do your search. You might want to advertise a little bit, deeper. You want to make sure you're getting the word out, not just to your core group of friends or, people, but extend that further. I think social media will allow us to do that, to reach more people faster. So I think, again, with technology, it should help become an equalizer in many ways, so that you're not just limited to certain circles, and it exposes more opportunities to people of all different backgrounds. So hopefully that will be helpful in the process. But people, when they're making decisions, have to think about that truly. And, you know, all things, you want to hire, let's say, the best person, whether it's on your board or part of your organization, to be your CFO, et cetera. You definitely want the best, most qualified person. And that's understandable. But all things being equal, extend the hand and look to diversify, I think, is all very, very important. The other thing that's interesting, you know, I spent a long time, Cedrick, you'll appreciate this, in construction, right? And airport construction, heavy civil construction, which is very much a male-dominated world. When I was attending some of the conferences, people would say, you know, most men are hired on their potential and women are hired on their experience. You know, we all have great potential. So look beyond just the experience, and you know, Southwest has the mantra of, like, we hire for culture, right? So people who are happy and friendly and problem solvers, right? They look to hire for culture fit, not for specifically, you know, qualifications. Have you ever been X, Y, or Z before? And so if you can find that right fit for your organization that will bring the level of commitment and drive and passion, then again, don't just go for the safe bet, which is the experience, but give somebody the opportunity to show their potential and invest into them. And I think that's important.
Very well said, Rosie. Very well said. I keep it simple because it's about our industry too. Exposure, education, and outreach. We've got to get to our non-represented folks early, okay? Expose them in high school to STEM and to science and technology. Expose them in college to aviation. I mean, I started as an intern my junior year in college, and I didn't know anything about aviation when I started as an intern. And, you know, 25, 26 years later, here I am. So I often go back to my college, my high school now, and speak to youth that are both minority and, you know, and on the gender side of female, about here's how you get into these technology fields. And to Rosie's point, it's about also recognizing the potential in them, okay, and bringing them to the table. It is. It's not about experience, it's about potential. But a lot of us are not getting the exposure in this particular industry that we should get. And I think we've got to amp that up. And I think that yours truly, you know, I point the finger at myself like I did. One thing I would change is try my best to expose both females and young Black youth, males, to this industry and get them involved in it.
Yeah, I would say on that, Cedrick, when I was the director in Chicago, one of the things we did, Mayor Daley was a big proponent, again, of exposure, and we had a kind of adopt a school. And so we adopted Thorpe School. And through Thorpe, what we did was we took the 7th and 8th graders and brought them to the airport. And I had all of our different consultants and contractors and employees present to the different students about job opportunities. Because I know when I was younger, I only thought there were pilots and flight attendants in the world of aviation. And if you were a boy, you're going to be a pilot. If you were a girl, you're going to be a flight attendant. And that was your exposure to aviation. I didn't realize there were organizations, right, that ran airports or, you know, anything else in aviation, whether it be in defense or airlines, commercial side, et cetera. So by exposing these young students to whether it be the regulatory side on the FAA, air traffic, you know, again, aviation, city jobs, which meant lawyers or marketing or accountants or, you know, project managers, as well as the commercial side of aviation and the planners and the contractors and all of the different participants that helps, you know, move this industry forward. That's what we did. And we did a whole day. We did the 7th graders in the afternoon, pushed everybody through, gave them lunch, gave them a tour of an airfield, and then did the same for the 8th graders so that they were old enough to, you know, listen to, you can't get off the bus, this is a secured area, et cetera, but gave them an exposure to an industry they never had. And many of these children, the urban environment, they came from the urban environment, never even flew before, right? And so now to open their eyes up, to your point, what it takes and how somebody, whether it was woman, male, color, you know, et cetera, was able to get to that career was extremely important and help them understand what it takes to get there. STEM, of course, being a key component.
Absolutely. Well said. I mean, I remember sitting at the dinner table with my parents when I first got the internship, and they're like, how much work can there really be at an airport? And that was at an adult level. So for kids to know that airports bring in and generate about a sixth of our economy is unknown. And the challenge with many of us is to just try to get minorities involved in engineering in general. And now we're trying to thread another needle and take it to the next level with aviation. But a sixth of the economy runs through, to your point, Rosie. There's so many opportunities out there. It's just really about trying to educate people and give them early exposure so they're conditioned in their mind. My kids always tell me, say, Dad, I never had a choice of going to college. And I was like, no, you're going. That's it. So expose them to things and make them involved. So that's my 2 cents, Lauren.
Well, you both are so on point. I know I've had the good fortune of working with 2 airport systems. And one of the first things I did in both cases was I worked with my HR team to remove those artificial barriers to entry for candidates, right? Some of the stuff you alluded to, Rosie, when you were talking earlier. And the complexion of the organization in both cases, I mean, it changed so much that it was almost frightening to some people, right? And so it does work when you remove those barriers and you allow people that look like us, that look like many of the people that in the audience, when we compete on a level playing field, it's amazing what kind of outcomes we get. So you two are completely on point. The last question I will ask is, so you can't turn your television on, you can't open a book or a newspaper article, turn the radio on. You certainly cannot go on social media without hearing some reference or some reaction to Black Lives Matter, right? Because Black Lives Matter. I have not been part of a conversation specific to this industry in the context of Black Lives Matter, okay? So I'm gonna challenge the 2 of you to take that movement, that concept, that reality, and apply that to our industry. So when you hear, as airport professionals, airport leaders, airport leapers, when you hear reference to the term Black Lives Matter in this aviation space, what does that mean for you?
Like Rosie wants to go.
Monica, if you want to go, you want me to take it to start?
Sure. No, I'll go. Okay. I mean, I start obviously in my head that the keywords that pop up there on the side of equality, justness, fairness, and I add to that, just like I think you alluded to, Ricky, an opportunity, okay? Providing a fair opportunity to succeed in the industry. I tell a lot of youth now that I talk to that in my mind, they're like, what makes you successful? I said, well, success is 3 parts. I'm an engineer, so it's a calculation, all right? Talent plus desire plus support. Everybody has a different level of talent, but the talent that they bring to the table, okay? Desire is right here. It's up to you, okay? But support, everyone gets different levels of support, okay? Some people, when I walked into my first company, Ricky, I was one of 2 out of 200 that looked like me, okay? And I mentioned my mentor. My mentor was a person who gave me support, okay? Now we're continuing to look to inject additional support to the Black lives that are in our industry, okay? And that's what I look at when I think about Black Lives Matter in our particular industry, is supporting and providing opportunities for success. If I can make it as simple as that. Everyone obviously wants a fair opportunity and wants a fair playing field. However, we know historically it's not been there, not just in general, life for Black lives, but also it hasn't been there in this industry with regards to exposure, with regards to opportunity, and with regards to support. So from that standpoint, I would add those 3 elements to say that Black Lives Matter.
That's Yeah, fabulous. I mean, I would agree. Diversity, inclusion, and equity, right, are things that I think of. And that I think, again, in terms of our industry, the government side, Ricky, you work for an agency, a governmental body agency. I did as well. I think those organizations, especially those in urban environments, are very cognizant of the fact to provide more diversity, more inclusion, and more equity across the board, both for gender as well as race. But I think that they, there's requirements, or aspirational goals to be met. There's programs that have been developed, but it's not enough. Again, when you know better, you do better, right? We know all the things that Cedrick, you just, expounded on that are true, and we collectively have to do better. I think this has, unfortunately, with the challenges that, loss of life and, the challenges that occurred in cities now and again, people's lives that have been affected by this movement. At the same time, the positive out of that is that hopefully, again, we know better, we do better. And it brings to the table those non-governmental agencies that have been lagging behind, the private sector, that bring inclusion and equity and justice and opportunity to their boards, to their senior management levels, and just across their organizations. And I think that we're seeing that, where people are making an oath and making a statement to that, but the proof is really within the actions, right? Let's see a year from now, that's going to be the measurement point to see what type of new opportunities have been, provided for in the Black Lives community and in the minority community in general. That's where I think the proof will be in the pudding, is the fact that we'll have to see what we do with this opportunity, right? Because this was it's unfortunate it came to this point, but it's been announced and it's loud and everyone has heard it. And if your head's buried in the sand, that's the only way you're going to avoid the understanding of things need to change, right? The future is here. Change needs to happen. It needs to happen now. And so what are leaders doing in order to promulgate that change?
Okay, all right, so we are now.
Sorry.
Go ahead, go for it. Go for it, Seth.
That was well said by Rosie, but just to add, I think with that question, Ricky, I think there's a thought process at times that if you say Black Lives Matter, that you're saying that Black Lives Matter more than everybody else, or something of that nature, and that's how folks try to demonize the statement. Okay, I remember my daughters jumping all over someone who's in the neighborhood saying all lives matter. Oh, you can't say that, and they did the same thing. But I think the key thing is what you're really asking for is a fair opportunity. That's all any of us can ask for. I coached a team where it was 10 kids lined up of all different nationalities. And I said, I want you to take a step forward if you have two parents. Okay. I want you to take a step forward if one of your parents went to college. I want you to take a step forward if your parents have spoken to you about college, have encouraged you to get. And by the time I was done with the 10 questions, there were 5 kids who were 8 steps ahead, and all the kids who were still on the line looked like me. And I said, that's where you're starting to race, and that's what we're trying to fix. It doesn't mean and it should be that everyone wants fairness, because no one wants to win a race where they started ahead, and you don't want to quit because you started behind, because you've done much more. Okay, if you still get to where you are, like Rosie is, and like you are, Ricky, and like Lauryn is. So that's me. Don't get me started on my diatribe. We'll get me going there.
No, I think both of you guys said some really profound things. And one of the things that I have been in tune with is there was initiative is like, show us your numbers, right? Because everyone, it's so easy to talk about, oh, well, we have a diversity and inclusion department. Oh, we just, appointed a Black woman as X, Y, and Z. And the initiative was show us your numbers. Let's see what the breakdown is of your companies. And they targeted a lot of large companies, but a lot of smaller companies were a part of it as well. And let's see what your breakdown is. Let's see what your demographic breakdown is. Let's see what the racial breakdown is of your employees, gender, et cetera. And it was an eye-opener, like Rosie said, when you know better, you do better. It was an eye-opener for a lot of companies. I think Carla Nilsson Chambers mentioned, she goes, there's so many career opportunities within our industry in aviation besides baggage carriers, flight attendants, and maintenance. But as a child, that's all that she saw. So it would be really, really interesting, and just throwing this out here since we're having this conversation, to have, almost like a show us your numbers. What does that breakdown look like, and in what positions, while we're talking about legends and leapers within your organizations, of your whether it's your racial breakdown, your gender breakdown, etc., to really see, let's have people put their money where their mouth is, and when you know better, you do better, and there is that sense of accountability. So that's really what I think. I wanted to just interject really quickly, Ricky, because both of them said some really profound things.
But that was a cherry on top of what is an amazing discussion going back and forth. I know we have some questions from the audience that we want to get in. And so we're now in the final quadrant of this discussion. And so I think Anthony, I guess Anthony's going to handle the questions. We're prepared to take those questions. You're on mute, Anthony.
All right, that will be important. We have one question in the chat right now that says, what are your thoughts about certification for minority-owned startup aviation firms, including pros and cons? So again, what are your thoughts about certification for minority-owned startup aviation firms? So like an ACDBE, DBE, SBE.
I can make, what I mentioned, I was working with Christina, if I could add, so she's a woman. She's a technology firm and a startup. And the ACDBE and those projects don't work for today's businesses, today's entrepreneurs, right? I think some of the regulations need to be looked at and modified due to new technologies. It's a new industry. Our businesses don't look like they used to anymore. They're not brick and mortar, they're online, they're technology based, it's data and other elements. So, and it's human resources. So I think we need to think about and challenge ourselves, challenge the regulators in that space to make, again, as Cedrick, you talked about, removing those barriers to entry or reducing them so that there's greater access for all.
Yeah. And mine comes from a perspective of, obviously, my firm getting the certification. The challenge in aviation is that across the board, obviously, airports are operated in states all across the country. They're operated, and as you know, Rosie, in municipalities all across the country. So if you're in the aviation business and you have an expertise you can bring to the table, I think we're licensed now in 24 different states. There's 24 different requirements across the board, depending on whether you're local, especially in aviation. It's a very tribal certification process. So Rosie, like Chicago, you got to have 50% of your employees there in order to get certified. So you go across the board and look for some additional level of standardization, just particularly in the aviation industry, towards getting certified if you're trying to grow the business. And operate in a lot of different states. So that's kind of been one of my challenges is getting certified in different states. There's 25 different requirements. So
I would agree. In an area
for a startup company or minority firm trying to do business in a new space, we make it harder because there's more bureaucracy, more costs, and it's just harder to navigate. So I think ideally, again, reducing barriers to entry to create kind of more of a uniform process that makes it simpler for everyone.
Right. Very well.
I think we have we have time for one more question or another question. The question is asking, what is the management style of Legend and Leaper? What is the management style? What is your management style?
You want me to start, Rosie?
Go ahead. Yes.
I mean, I guess everybody who everybody who works with me, look, in the business that I am, I have to be a consensus builder. The airport is operated obviously by many different entities, from the executive level, from the financial level, from maintenance, operation, design. So what I do is try to build consensus. Well, my management style is exactly that same way. I try to take the strengths of and opinions of the people on our senior leadership and team and try to mold them into a consensus, because I feel like you give more effort if you know we're all working together and you also participated in the decision-making process. I think Obama always alluded to, and Lincoln as well, the team of rivals, okay? And that occurs at times, that people need to be able to voice their opinion, but if that leads to the right approach and the best answer, then that's the right way to go. And, you know, I had 2 other partners in my business. We didn't always agree, and we never did a 2-to-1. We did a 3-to-0. And that was when we decided, hey, that's when we're going in the right direction. So you had to talk that out. So naturally, my style is not to dictate. My style is to collaborate, build consensus. And I look at it as what I call the reverse triangle. I'm down here supporting you because that's how we're going to grow. If I'm doing this, then the growth is limited. But if I'm like this supporting you, we're going to grow and get bigger. And fortunately, that's worked out for us.
All right.
I agree with Cedrick on that. That was the same way for me, especially in terms of when I took over some of these departments and became leader in some different departments within the city, and specifically when I went to the airport, I was not the subject matter expert, right? So I went in knowing what my strengths were and what my weaknesses were. And definitely my weakness was the industry. And so whether it was on the construction side or the aviation side, I had to listen and collaborate with my team to then come up with the best play or strategy. You know, at the end of the day, the coach calling the play in which he thinks he can get the ball over the line. I had to call that final play, but I had to listen for my entire team to get the, you know, a better understanding of what the field was like out there, what the conditions were like, to then make the right calls and help them. But mostly my job was to remove obstacles.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. This question is asking, what is the best advice? I believe it's advice. What is the best advice you can give a women minority-owned company to winning a bid at the airport?
I would just say for anyone, right, is don't give up, put your best foot forward. Make sure that every time you go into something, you don't leave anything on the field, right? You give it, you know, you have to suit up, you have to grab the bat and ball, and you have to get out on the field and play. You're not going to do it from the stand. So if you want to go after an opportunity, go all in, and make sure then if you succeed, replicate that, right? Look at what your strengths and what your weaknesses were for the next opportunity. If you fail, request a meeting and try to understand why. And then you can be of greater success on the next opportunity. Hopefully you'll use that, you know, those lessons learned to build for where your weaknesses were so you can move forward. And I would say that for anyone.
Yeah, I agree with Rosie. Perseverance is the word that comes in when you talk about that. I try to talk to my kids because I know all of us, the next generation here, wants everything right away. But it's still, you got to know your craft in order to win. And like I said, that's why I wouldn't change the way I did things. I worked for a firm for 12, 13 years, so I knew the craft and I developed the relationships and I had some level of respect. So then when I entered the field, I wasn't an unknown commodity. I was one that, at least to start, people knew who you were. And so you have to be strategic about how you get the investment in yourself done in order to be, you know, a true entrepreneur. You got to know your craft, do that dirty work, but then to Rosie's point, have the perseverance. Even if you don't not successful the first time, come back, find out how you can improve, and then apply those elements to your next bid and just keep going.
Now, I know time is tight, but can you guys talk about the importance of relationships in the equation, right?
So, well, I'm just going to make one quick one because I've been dying to do this. But Lauryn, I mean, when we first talked, it was briefly during our pre-meet, but your father, Kurt, is amazing man, your whole family. And so at first I didn't put the two together. And then after we hung up after that pre-meet, I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I ask her how her father's doing? But those are relationships, right? And those relationships were built off of other relationships. And I think in this business, and I think in anything in life, it's those relationships. And Cedrick, you talked about reaching back, whether it be to old friends or again, people like Elaine Roberts or Bonnie Allen from the industry who have now since, or Gina Marie Lindsay, Jeff Fagan, people who have retired and left, but you could still reach back and talk to them and maintain those relationships and still, have one, great friendships, and two, you still learn something, and so I'm a big believer in you can't have too many friends and too many acquaintances, so say hi to your dad and your mom.
I feel like I'm doing my job well as an independent individual as far as the industry, if you didn't make that direct correlation at first, but I definitely will.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to think on the relationship side, so engineers are used to having a metric. What's the metric? And relationships don't necessarily give you a direct metric. But after 25 years of doing this, I'll tell you one thing, this industry is extremely tight and small. And people, if I see Rosie here, I will see Rosie again. If I see Lauryn here, I will see Lauryn again somewhere else. If I see Ricky over at this airport, I will see him again. If I'm working with people that I've spent the beginning of my career with, I see them at FAA. I see them at other airports. I see that. So the relationship piece is key. One, not just with your peers and the people you're working with, okay, but it's also key with networking, et cetera, in order to develop your business. Relationships are extremely important. And there may not be a direct metric you can apply to it, but the metric I have in my head is I definitely will see many of the faces on this list and in this chat room again somewhere in our industry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are just about out of questions and we're at the top of the hour. At this time, I just want to thank our guest, our panelists, Cedrick Johnson and Rosie. Thank you for your knowledge that you've imparted on us. Thank you for our moderators that guided this discussion, Ricky Smith and Lauryn. Thank you for moderating this conversation. Want to remind everyone, our next Legends and Leapers, we're actually meeting on a monthly basis on the last Wednesday of every month, so at 2 p.m. Eastern. So be sure to mark that in your calendar. However, for next month, since we're at the same time, that week is a holiday week, we're going to meet on that Tuesday instead of the Wednesday. We're going to meet on Tuesday only for November, and then we'll resume again. So please sure to join us again. You can see more information about registering in this event on our website. And then we also want to encourage you, we're just about a little less than a week away for those who haven't voted. So I want to encourage everyone to vote if you've not already voted. Thank you again for joining us for today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
It was
opportunity.
great being a part of it.
Yes.
Ricky, when do we announce our talk show?
Oh, that's gonna be
I tell you,
it's been canceled.